spending time with you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I hope you will be there for the rest of my life. I hope you let my friendship be one of the things that you're learning how to let in.
And really take care of each other on screen and off screen, and just kind of have a really truthful friendship and a beautiful sistership that continues to grow and grow even through this press tour. Something's bothering her. She's gonna fix something. I know.
Sorry.
She's getting the fixing itch that Cynthia Erivo gets.
It's not there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because it's been...
When someone tells you they feel stupid for believing the friendship was real, that they thought they had something genuine, something like sisterhood, only to realize they were just a temporary attachment being used until something newer came along, that is not a casual complaint. That is a woman describing a specific kind of betrayal. The kind that hits harder because the connection felt real while it was happening. And according to insiders, that is exactly where Cynthia Erivo is sitting right now. Hurt, blindsided, and apparently done staying quiet about it. Because Ariana Grande has allegedly already moved on. The Wicked press tour ended, the promotional obligations wrapped, and somewhere in the transition from one project to the next, the intense bond that Ariana and Cynthia had been performing in front of cameras for months quietly dissolved, at least on Ariana's end.
Stupid right now because I thought that we had a good thing going. You know, she was like my sister, but that's clearly in the past now because she didn't feel the same. Used me to scratch an itch, and now I'm yesterday's news.
While Cynthia was still emotionally invested in what she believed was a genuine, lasting friendship, Ariana was reportedly already latching onto her next co-star from her upcoming Audrey Hepburn biopic. New project, new bestie, same pattern, and Cynthia, who had gone all in on this friendship, who had spoken publicly about speaking to Ariana almost every day, who described their connection as one of the most gratifying things she had ever experienced, is now reportedly considering legal action for emotional damage and for what sources are calling deliberate exposure to racist harassment.
Ariana, are you okay?
It's so great. That joy he wanted to infuse in every frame.
This situation is messier than it looks on the surface. And once you trace the full arc of what happened between these two women, from the first moment their chemistry became visible to the world through the months of harassment Cynthia absorbed while Ariana stayed silent, to the blind items that appeared to throw Cynthia under the bus entirely, the picture that emerges is not a friendship that simply faded. It is a pattern playing out exactly as it has played out before, with a different co-star and a different project, and the same devastating ending for the person who made the mistake of believing Ariana's intensity was the same thing as permanence.
Seen this week, people are taking the lyrics of Defying Gravity and really holding space with that and feeling power in that.
I didn't know that that was happening.
I've seen it, yeah.
That's really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know that was happening.
I've seen it on a couple posts. I don't know how widespread, but, you know, I am in queer media, so that's my,
it's really cool.
It's been a pleasure spending time with you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I hope you will be there for the rest of my life. I hope you let my friendship be one of the things that you're learning how to let in. Forever, I'm here.
The Wicked press tour gave the public something it did not expect and could not look away from. From the very first appearances, the energy between Ariana and Cynthia was charged in a way that transcended normal co-star affection. The touches, the whispered conversations between takes, the way Cynthia's protective instincts activated whenever anyone came too close to Ariana, it was all visible, and it was all constant.
After you first started working together, did you get to sing that together or perform it? Oh.
Are they? What are they?
On our hands?
We have For Good on our hands.
Yes.
And they, now that's in like, we got them on opposite, so when we hold hands, they touch. It's so crazy.
It's ridiculous. We have our
lot.
puppies.
We have our poppies. Oh, I love the poppy scene. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you, Pink News.
Thank you.
We love you. Thank you.
In an interview that became one of the most discussed clips of the entire promotional cycle, Cynthia reached over mid-sentence and started adjusting something on Ariana's appearance, while Ariana laughed and leaned into it. And the whole thing played like a domestic moment between two people who have long since stopped being self-conscious around each other. Fans could not stop watching. They cataloged every touch, every lingering look, every moment where the professional context seemed insufficient to explain the intimacy of what was happening between them. And for a while, the dominant conversation was about what this connection meant and how far it went. Then the harassment started. Ariana's fan base turned on Cynthia in ways that were specific, sustained, and deeply unpleasant. The jokes about her appearance, the videos mocking her manner and her blackness, men dressing up as her in ways that carried the particular ugliness of misogynoir wearing the costume of comedy. The framing of Cynthia as the aggressive, overwhelming presence in the friendship, the one who was too much, too intense, too protective, too attached.
I think we found a little piece of ourselves in each other. I think there are little pieces of us that when we got to do this together, when we first started.
Only up from here.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
so
scary.
good.
We spent too much time together.
Oh, no, I love it.
But not enough.
Not enough. We spent too much time together.
Oh, no, I love it.
The same emotional attentiveness that fans had been celebrating when they read it as romantic suddenly became the thing she was being ridiculed for when the same fans decided the narrative needed a different shape. SZA, of all people, was the one who publicly called it out for what it was. She left a comment under a video specifically addressing the pattern of these attacks and named it plainly, misogynoir. Not a reading error, not fans being too sensitive, but a documented and ugly specific form of targeting that applied race and gender simultaneously to make Cynthia the object of ridicule. SZA said it clearly, and she said it publicly.
Kind of channeling a little Audrey Hepburn in this journey.
I've always loved old Hollywood glamour. Like Marilyn and Audrey have always been my references. I've always gravitated towards like 50s, 60s silhouettes and like retro vintage and stuff. Like even when I was 15, I can't even think of a time when that wasn't like my vision board. But it's been more fun to have more places to really do that. And it's been really, we've been like, my stylist Mimi and I have been leaning all the way in. We've been doing lots of vintage shopping, and then this is custom Loewe. So this is not vintage, but it's also giving a little bit of old Hollywood, so it's been really fun.
Would you ever play Audrey in a biopic?
Oh my goodness. Why is everyone asking me this? You're insane.
No, yes,
You're insane. You're insane. You're insane.
You could do it.
You're insane. I love you.
The person whose friendship with Cynthia had generated all of this was silent. Ariana said nothing. For months, while her own fan base dragged Cynthia through content that SZA felt strongly enough about to address directly, Ariana offered no defense and no acknowledgement. The woman who had written publicly about Cynthia being the fiercest talent to grace the earth, the woman who said she would never forget a second of their time together, who described the privilege of knowing and loving her, watched her friend be publicly humiliated by her own supporters and did not intervene. That silence is the piece of this story that Cynthia apparently cannot get past. And it is the piece that sources say is central to the legal action she is reportedly considering. Because there is a difference between a fan base behaving badly and a fan base behaving badly while the person who generated the situation says nothing. The argument being assembled, according to insiders, is that Ariana's team was not simply passive during this period, that the blind items which began circulating once the press tour ended, claiming that Cynthia was somehow responsible for Ariana's personal struggles, that the A-list actress was distancing herself from her foreign-born co-star, that the two were no longer speaking, read less like organic gossip and more like managed narrative. Like someone was shaping the story to make Cynthia the problem rather than the person who got left. One blind item described an A-list actress blaming her foreign-born co-star for developing an eating disorder. Another described the same pairing as no longer on speaking terms in language that made Cynthia sound like the difficult one, the overwhelming one, the one whose attachment had become the issue. The pattern of those items, appearing after the tour ended, framing Cynthia as the source of instability, is what Cynthia's camp is reportedly pointing to as evidence that the silence was not neutral, that it was an active choice to let the narrative run in a direction that protected Ariana's image at Cynthia's expense. If that is what happened, if Ariana's team was feeding information to blind item sources while Ariana publicly said nothing about the harassment her friend was absorbing, then what Cynthia experienced was not simply a friendship cooling off. It was being used as an emotional anchor during the most intense stretch of a promotional cycle and then being discarded, with the harassment she absorbed during that period becoming a weapon to manage the perception of the exit. The Audrey Hepburn biopic is the piece of this that makes the pattern undeniable. Because Ariana's attachment style is documented well enough that what happened with Cynthia is recognizable as a chapter in a larger story, rather than an isolated incident. With Ricky Alvarez, there were matching tattoos within weeks of meeting and a breakup within months. With Pete Davidson, there was an engagement inside 5 months and an explosion that produced a trail of covered-up ink on both of them. With Ethan Slater, there was a connection so intense It ended his marriage and began a new relationship before the promotional obligations of the film that brought them together had concluded. The matching tattoos with Cynthia fit that exact template. Ariana wrote about her publicly in language usually reserved for the deepest relationships of a person's life. She described knowing and loving her. She described privileges. She said she would never forget a second. And now, with a new project and a new co-star, sources say the same gravitational energy is already being applied in a new direction. Cynthia is not a naive person. She has been in this industry long enough to understand how professional relationships work and how press tours can create intensity that does not survive contact with ordinary life. She knows the difference between working closely with someone and building something real. But the specific evidence of what she and Ariana built, the daily conversations, the public declarations, the tattoos, the emotional investment that was visible enough to make Cynthia's own girlfriend uncomfortable, was specific and sustained enough that walking away from it without acknowledgement is not something she appears willing to do quietly. The legal action that sources are describing is still reportedly in the consideration stage rather than something that has been filed. Emotional damage claims in celebrity friendship contexts are notoriously difficult to pursue, and the specific theory about deliberate exposure to racist harassment requires a level of documented intent that would be challenging to establish in court. But the value of the legal conversation, even before anything is filed, is significant. It forces Ariana's team to respond to a framework in which what happened is not described as a friendship that naturally wound down, but as something that caused specific and documentable harm to a specific person. Cynthia Erivo is an Academy Award-nominated actress, a Tony winner, one of the most celebrated performers working right now. She is not someone whose reputation can simply be managed away by a few blind items. And the fact that she's reportedly preparing to make this a formal matter, to put her account of what happened on record in a context where Ariana's camp cannot respond with silence, is the development that Ariana's people are going to find most difficult to absorb. Because the story Ariana has been allowing to exist by default, of a friendship that intensified during a creative process and then naturally cooled, requires Cynthia to stay quiet about what she experienced. It requires her to absorb the harassment, absorb the blind items, absorb the loss of a connection she believed was real, and do none of that publicly. And Cynthia, who told people close to her that she feels used and discarded, who described feeling stupid for believing the friendship meant what she thought it meant, is apparently no longer willing to absorb any of it in silence. The specific legal theory being explored, according to sources, centers on two distinct but connected claims. The first is emotional damage. The argument that Ariana's behavior, specifically the intensity of the bond she built with Cynthia during filming, followed by the abrupt and silent withdrawal once the promotional obligations ended, caused Cynthia demonstrable psychological harm. This is not a standard claim, and it is not easy to litigate. Courts are generally reluctant to treat the ending of a friendship as actionable regardless of how the ending was handled. But the documentation that exists, Ariana's own published words about Cynthia, the matching tattoos, the daily communications Cynthia described, the public declarations of love and permanence, creates a record of representations that were made and then abandoned in ways that sources close to Cynthia are describing as deliberate rather than careless. The second claim is the more significant one legally, and the one that, if substantiated, would create real exposure for Ariana's team. The allegation that Ariana knowingly allowed Cynthia to be exposed to racist harassment, and that the blind items which appeared after the tour ended were sourced from within Ariana's camp specifically to redirect public narrative away from Ariana and onto Cynthia, is not a vague emotional complaint. It is a specific factual claim. It requires evidence of intent and of connection between Ariana's team and the sources who planted the items. That evidence, if it exists, is the kind of documentation that changes a conversation from gossip into something courts take seriously. The harassment Cynthia absorbed was not ordinary celebrity pile-on. The specific quality of what was directed at her, the misogynoir that SZA named explicitly, the videos that used her blackness as the object of ridicule, the framing of her care and protectiveness as pathological rather than loving, was targeted in ways that went beyond general fan behavior. It had a particular shape, and the timing of when it intensified, running parallel with the period when blind items were appearing that painted Cynthia as the source of instability in the friendship, is something Cynthia's people are apparently treating as evidence of coordination rather than coincidence. There is also the question of what Ariana was doing during all of this that makes the silence feel less like negligence and more like a choice. She was not absent from social media during the months the harassment was running. She was posting. She was active. She was maintaining a public presence across multiple platforms while her fan base was producing content specifically targeting her friend. The decision not to say anything while all of that was happening was not a passive absence. It was a sustained, active decision, made repeatedly across a period of months, to not use any of that presence to address what was being done to someone she had publicly declared she loved. SZA's intervention, the comment that named misogynoir and said directly that it needed to stop, is significant in this context precisely because it demonstrates that intervention was possible. One person with a platform saw what was happening, decided it was worth addressing, and addressed it. The person whose name and friendship generated the entire situation made a different calculation. What was that calculation? That is the question Cynthia's legal exploration is designed to force into the open. Because there are only a limited number of explanations for why someone would stay silent while their friend is being racially harassed by their own fan base. Obliviousness is not credible. The harassment was too visible and too sustained for someone actively using social media to have missed it. Indifference is damning. The idea that Ariana simply did not care enough about what was happening to Cynthia to say anything directly contradicts the public declarations of their friendship, or deliberateness. The possibility that the silence was a strategic choice by someone who understood that speaking would extend the story and that not speaking would allow it to run its course in ways that redirected attention away from Ariana and toward Cynthia. None of those explanations are good. The first is implausible. The second is cruel. The third is the one that produces legal exposure. The broader pattern that the Audrey Hepburn biopic makes visible is worth examining as its own story beyond the Cynthia situation. Because Ariana Grande is one of the most successful artists of her generation, and part of what makes her professionally effective is the same thing that makes her personally complicated: the intensity with which she connects to people in close proximity. That intensity produces extraordinary creative output. It produced the Wicked performances. It will presumably produce whatever she does with the Audrey Hepburn project. The emotional authenticity she brings to her work is real, and it is rooted in real connections with real people who are genuinely moved by the experience of being close to her. But the people on the other end of those connections have a different experience of the intensity than Ariana does. For her, the bond is a tool that serves the work. When the work ends, the bond has served its purpose, and the intensity can be redirected toward the next thing. For the people she bonds with, Cynthia being the most recent and most visible example, the experience of that intensity, the daily conversations, the declarations of love and permanence, the tattoos that mark the connection on their skin, creates an expectation that the bond is more than functional, that it will survive the end of the project, that what they built together was real in ways that do not disappear when the promotional schedule clears. The gap between those two understandings of what the connection is where the damage happens. And Cynthia is not the first person to fall into that gap. She may be the first person to respond to it by engaging legal counsel. Whether she files or whether the consideration of legal action is enough to produce a private resolution, an acknowledgement from Ariana's team, a public statement of support, something that addresses the harassment retroactively, is not yet known. But the fact that Cynthia's camp is even in the conversation about legal options means that the minimum she is willing to accept is something more than continued silence from the person who left her in this position. Ariana's team is not going to find this situation easy to manage, because the evidence of what was built between them is in Ariana's own words. She published them. She cannot now claim the friendship was casual, or that Cynthia's investment was a misreading of something professional. The record says otherwise, and Cynthia's people know exactly where that record is. The tattoo is perhaps the most concrete piece of that record. Ariana and Cynthia got matching tattoos. Not a subtle symbol that could be explained away as a coincidence of shared aesthetic. A deliberate, matching, permanent mark that both of them now carry. Ariana's history with tattoos as relationship markers is so documented that the internet decoded the matching ink with Cynthia immediately. Every person who got a matching tattoo with Ariana before Cynthia eventually found themselves on the other end of a relationship that ended. Every piece of ink that was supposed to be permanent became a reminder of something that was not. Ricky Alvarez, Pete Davidson, the trail of covered and modified designs that follow Ariana's romantic and intense platonic history, like a breadcrumb trail. Cynthia now has one of those tattoos. She has it on her skin. She will have it for the rest of her life unless she chooses to cover or remove it. And the person who gave her a matching one, who wrote about never forgetting a second of their time together, has apparently already moved on to generating the same kind of intensity with someone new. That is not a small thing to be left with. The industry has largely stayed quiet about this situation in the specific way the industry goes quiet when something involves a name as significant as Ariana Grande's. The Wicked promotional machine was too important, the box office stakes too high, the cultural footprint too enormous for anyone with professional relationships to the project to risk being seen as the person who complicated it. So the harassment ran, the blind items ran. Cynthia absorbed both. And the people who could have said something, beyond SCA, who had no professional stake in staying silent, did not. Now that the promotional cycle is over and the box office receipts are in and the immediate stakes of the Wicked machine have settled, the calculation changes. The people who stayed quiet during the promotional period are no longer protecting a current commercial interest. And Cynthia, who was asked to absorb a significant amount of professional and personal damage in service of a friendship she now apparently believes was not what she was told it was, has less reason to protect anyone's comfort than she did 6 months ago. The next move belongs to her, and the fact that she is reportedly considering making it a legal matter is the clearest possible signal that she is not interested in the version of this story where she quietly moves on and lets Ariana's team manage the narrative to the conclusion they prefer. She has the receipts. They are in Ariana's own handwriting, and she is apparently done letting them sit unused. The next move belongs to her. And this time, Ariana's team is not going to be able to simply wait out a press cycle and let the story move on. So here is where this lands. The Wicked press tour produced one of the most visible and most emotionally charged co-star bonds the entertainment industry has generated in years. Cynthia went all in on that bond. Ariana's fan base spent months harassing Cynthia in ways that SZA called out publicly, while Ariana said nothing. Blind items appeared after the tour ended that framed Cynthia as the problem, rather than the person who got left. Ariana is reportedly already bonded with a new co-star from her next project, and Cynthia is reportedly considering legal action for emotional damage and deliberate exposure to racist harassment. Do you think what Cynthia is describing, being used as an emotional attachment during one project and discarded when the next one started, is specific to Ariana's pattern or something the industry produces in general? And does the silence during the harassment from someone who publicly declared how deeply she loved and valued Cynthia change how you read everything that was said during the press tour? Drop everything you are thinking in the comments, hit that like and subscribe, because if Cynthia files and this becomes a formal legal matter, the version of this story that Ariana's team has been managing is going to become significantly harder to maintain.